Thank you, Tom. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending our graduation. Our group created the web-based application Code Room. My name is Greg Matchett, and I'm currently transitioning out of the United States Army. I was responsible for the challenge page, the collaborative IDE, and the video chat functionality. I'll be presenting the demo of our app.
My name is Brendan. I am a 5-year Air Force veteran. I was responsible for setting up our basic React app with custom themes, building out a lot of the instructor flow, and our hosting. Today, I'll be telling you about the technologies that we used.
Hello, I'm Joshua Franklin, and I'm an 8-year Marine veteran. I was responsible for the database and backend API creation, along with Justin, and a few front-end components. Today, I'll be speaking to you about some of the challenges we faced, our workflow, and the future of our app.
Hi, everybody. My name is Justin Cordero, and I'm a Navy veteran. And along with Josh, I was responsible for the database and building out our REST API backend. And I also built some of the front-end features. And today I'll be giving you the overhead view of Code Room and tell you a bit about who it's for. So Code Room started as an idea from a pain point that we all experienced during one of our lectures here at Code Platoon. Our instructor, Chad, wanted to demonstrate a concept to us by having us work in groups to solve a quick challenge. But the problem was that there was no way for us to collaborate in real time to solve the problem, run our code, and communicate effectively without using multiple tools that required account creations or downloads. So Code Room's a project that's aimed at improving the learning experience for new developers by allowing educators to provide immediate access to online coding environments that can be worked in by groups of their students in real time in a remote setting with no overhead. Code Room supports 5 of the most popular programming languages and allows educators to easily create coding challenges and separate code rooms containing that challenge. Students simply join the code room and get right to work. So you might be wondering, what's the difference between Code Room and other online IDEs? Well, what makes Code Room stand out from the rest is that it provides both a code editor and a compiler that gives instant feedback about your code. It allows for real-time collaboration. It includes video chat capability, requires no downloads, and it doesn't even require students to create accounts. So now I'm going to pass it off to Greg to give you a demo of Code Room.
Thank you, Justin. Now let's see how Code Room works. Here, we have a new instructor signing into his account. We'll call him Charles. Charles is new to Code Room, and so he does not have any challenges in his dashboard yet. So he decides to get started by working with a couple of sample challenges, which are provided by Code Room out of the box. Here he looks at his challenges and goes with the Python challenge, Roman to integer, as well as goes back to grab the JavaScript challenge, valid parentheses. His dashboard still looks a little empty though, so he decides to create a few more. That's better. Charles now has the ability to view all of his challenges and a brief overview in each of these cards. But Charles wants to create a new challenge specific to his class today. Here he is greeted with a new page where he can create his challenge in one of 5 supported languages: JavaScript, Python, C, C++, and Java. He can also use a fully functioning integrated IDE to write his challenge in, or simply copy and paste previous code. Here, he opts to write it out. The IDE provides syntax highlighting to help make it easy for Charles to quickly write out his challenge's starter code that his students will use to build off and solve his challenge. After he saves his challenge, it will then become available on his dashboard along with all the other previous challenge. He now has the ability to generate unique links for this challenge that he can send out to individual students or groups that they may use to access their respective code room. Let's see what this looks like through the eyes of a student. Here's our student. We'll call her Sarah. She receives a unique link in her email that she can use to access her assigned code room. Upon clicking the link, she is brought to a sign-in page where she is asked to sign in with her first and last name. After which, she is brought to the student challenge page. This page includes a challenge description, language, collaborative IDE, and terminal, as well as a live video chat feature. Sarah's shy, so she's going to keep her video muted. She is then joined by her classmate Greg, and they begin collaborating as more students join the room and activate their cameras. Each student has a live view of the code and can all make changes in real time. Students are all assigned colors that help identify them by their cursor and highlights. When students are ready to test their code, they can click the Run button, which will compile and run their code, outputting the result, or if there are any errors, to the terminal. Successfully run code will output the result of the code, the speed of execution, as well as the amount of memory used. This allows users to test and optimize their code before they decide they have the best solution to the challenge. When students feel they have the solution, they can all agree to submit the code, after which all students will be locked out of the challenge simultaneously. Now, let's get back to Charles. After waiting some time, Charles goes back to his submissions. He simply clicks the challenge that he sent out, and all the submissions will be displayed in a paginated list with all of the code submitted, the contributors, and the time it was submitted. Here, we see all of the student submissions for this specific challenge. And at the bottom here, we see our very own Sarah's submission, as well as all the other contributors to that code. And that concludes the demonstration. Now I'll pass it off to Brendan to talk about the technology we use to build our application.
Thank you, Greg, for that demo. The material that we learned throughout the Code Platoon curriculum was essential to getting our app off of the ground, but to bring our full vision to fruition, it required us each taking on multiple new technologies that we had never used. Leveraging the Django REST framework allowed us to quickly set up our CRUD operations, user authentication, and permissions so that data could only be accessed by and for the users that it's tied to. On the front end, React was utilized with a combination of styled components and material UI to allow us to rapidly develop a great UX-focused and consistent front end. But one of our main goals really was to make tackling these coding challenges easier for the students so that they can focus on the task at hand rather than setting up their environments. Firebase's real-time database was one key in our success with this. It is what allows the students to collaborate in real time with the instant updates to everyone's code editor while persisting that data for the instructor to then see later on. A Judge Zero API compiles our code and returns the results, as Greg had mentioned earlier. And lastly, Agora was the last tool critical in achieving this real-time collaboration. Its communications services made setting up channels for specific rooms simple. Lastly, our application wouldn't be convenient if we were to ask instructors to clone our code and set up their own servers. So for deployment, we wanted to make it fast, reliable, and secure. To achieve this, we chose to containerize our full stack with Docker and host everything on Google Cloud on a Google Cloud Compute instance and run it using Docker Compose. This allowed us to have multiple images without the need for a full-blown container cluster like Kubernetes. And finally, for security, we used a certbot script that's running as a volume to check our TLS certificates every 12 hours and renew them with Let's Encrypt as a certificate authority if needed. Finally, to pass it off to Josh, he'll tell you a little bit about the challenges that we faced.
Thank you, Brendan. We encountered our biggest challenges early in the project when trying to decide on our scope and which technologies to use. Our initial choice of technology required each of us to learn an entire new stack of tech, limiting the scope of the project that we could feasibly accomplish during our sprint. Our chosen stack instead, we were able to spend more time adding the features we wanted most. After making this decision, the rest of the project was smooth sailing, even our conflicts. And though we still encountered challenges such as integrating and rendering our collaborative IDE in React, we were able to overcome them through teamwork. We'd like to credit this smoothness to our workflow process based on agile development and our group cohesion. We leveraged our daily stand-ups and stand-downs, backlog refinement, and continuous development with branch protection on GitHub to consistently deliver on our target tasks. Our group cohesion and constant communication with collaboration tools like Slack, Trello, and Limnu ensured an environment where every team member could speak freely, whether to ask for help when needed or to voice a disagreeing opinion. So what's next for Code Room? A few ideas we had for future sprints, including allowing an instructor to add their own test cases for student submissions. This ties in nicely with our second point, which is a point system to allow an instructor to create some sense of competitiveness or to monitor students' progress based on completing test cases or solution efficiency. Third, we'd like to expand our current selection of sample challenges to include a wider breadth of languages and even allow some community submission. And lastly, we'd like to reduce our downtime during deployments by adding automated testing and integration. We'd like to thank you for joining us today and encourage you all to sign up for a free account at coderoom.us if you'd like to try it for yourself. And now I'd like to open up the floor to questions.
Awesome. Great job, Code Room. Awesome app. Is there a level? Yeah, we have a couple of questions from the chat. Is there a level of difficulty that you can assign to each challenge so the tutor knows what assignments to send based on the student's level?
I'll let Greg take that.
Yeah, so we don't have at the moment any difficulty setting per se. The main functionality was to be able to have the professors create their own and just be able to essentially really quickly create a challenge and send it to their students immediately. So I guess the most general use case would be that the professor already kind of knows where the students are, considering that they're utilizing our app to kind of push it out to their students.
Right. What made you consider like Google Cloud or over, Microsoft Azure or AWS to deploy your application?
Brendan, you want to take that one?
I'll take that. So we had initially deployed it on an instance of EC2, but I'm unemployed, and the free tier of EC2 was the shared gig of RAM was not enough to build our container and run the React app. So Google Cloud has a $300 free credit that we're eating up here running our app right now. That was the biggest reason.
What was the biggest technical hurdle that you had to overcome?
Greg, would you like to take that as well?
Yeah, sure. So I think the biggest one, and we touched on it earlier, was kind of finding the right technology to use. We spent the first 2 or 3 days kind of just settling on the technology that was going to work for us, specifically for getting a IDE functioning within the browser and then connecting that with interactivity. So basically kind of just combining all those aspects together and making it work without crashing our browser was definitely the biggest challenge. But we were able to tie it all together pretty quickly thanks to Firebase.
Awesome. Yeah, great job, Code Room. And that concludes the questions from the chat.